So, hi and welcome back. I'm super excited about the session we're going to host now, which is going to be led by my two super experienced colleagues, Smita Bhattacharjee and Sandra Larsson. They're going to talk about the importance of establishing compliant design control for smoother product registration. They're going to talk about the challenges within the medical device industry and how you can actually use some really cool tools to overcome them. So thanks very much for joining and welcome, Smita and Sandra.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ryan. 600 emergency use authorizations have been made by FDA during COVID. Many medical device companies are working on fast-track development of their products in order to get them faster to the market. Yes, this has been the world we have been living for the past 18 months. The life sciences industry has really been challenged to its limits. Many companies really had to work on expedited product as well as manufacturing of their products to get them faster to the market. The demand and need for these products were so much high in certain countries that even the regulatory authority actually had to drive emergency authorizations of these products, everyone really with an attempt to save as many lives as possible.
EU MDR has arrived. What challenges remains? Caution distributor, or are you maybe now a manufacturer after all? UK announces heavier regulations on artificial intelligence and software as medical device. Digital health adoption is not a choice, but a necessity. So apart from the pandemic, the regulations is now demanding much more of us working in the medical device industry, whether you are a manufacturer, a distributor, and not to neglect the increased accountability on the notarized bodies and authorities as well. So I would say that we need better tools to remain effective in the way we conduct regulatory affairs businesses as well.
Hello and welcome to this year's Life Sciences PLM Innovation Forum and to our talk show where we will talk about how to establish compliant design control for a smoother product registration.
Yes, so with me today I have Smita. So Smita, if you turn to the next slide. So with me today I have Smita Bhattacharjee. Okay. She is a business development executive for Technia within life science, and she's been working in this field since, I would say, it's over 15 years now, Smita, isn't
Yes.
it? Yes. And Smita has been working within manufacturing, consumer goods, life science, and really is driven in facilitating and really supporting customers to with solutions adhering to regulatory compliance.
Thank you for the introduction. And joining me today is Sandra Larsson. She has recently joined our Technia family as a business consultant within the life sciences division. She has a rich background working in the medical device industry for the past 10 years, both in R&D as well as regulatory affairs. In her previous job, she was even responsible for implementing the regulatory information management system. She is very driven in the PLM way of working, has a strong passion for it, and truly believes how efficient companies could potentially get with the PLM way of working. So, Sandra, why are we talking about a smoother product registration? What does it mean?
Well, I can tell you when I was working as a regulatory affairs specialist some years ago, I would say my first assignment was to perform a change notification to an Asian authority, and it was supposed to be a smooth change and just hand in the change notification. But guess what? I actually failed. Why did I fail? Because I did not have access to any of the data that was used when we did the initial submission 5 years before the change. So I had no good way to argue against the authority why this was actually just a simple change. And we ended up having to do a completely new initial submission, taking much longer than was expected. And of course, not living up to the expectations from the market and the launch dates for this change product.
Okay.
So definitely for regulatory, it's definitely needed. What about design control? What's your take on this?
Well, we have been having design controls for a long time. It's not something new that got introduced. But I have to point out the fact that the times have been really challenging for all of us, and medical device companies have been really striving to get products quicker to the market. Um, when we talk about getting products quicker to the market, manufacturing them, it's important that we have compliant processes in place for the product development. But compliant processes are not enough. We have to also secure that the platform that we are using is equally efficient. And I think it is about time that we talk about not only having a compliant process in place, but having an equally efficient platform to facilitate that. Having said that, I would like to introduce the agenda for the next 50 minutes that we are going to talk about. So we will briefly focus on the typical medical device industry challenges that we are facing currently. As I already mentioned, we all know, we all understand the compliant requirements, but are we doing enough? We would like to talk a bit around that. Insightful story around what is a regulatory circle of life and the challenges that comes with it. Can we even mitigate those challenges?
And during the show, we will also give you some insights into how a platform solution can actually address some of these challenges within our medical device industry that we are working within.
Yes.
So let's review some of these challenges then, Smita.
Yeah.
So I would say increasing regulatory scrutiny is a big challenge.
Yes, it is definitely. And I'm looking at you. What is your take on that, since you are from that background?
I would say now that we have a global reach when it comes to our products. And that means that we have to adhere to a lot of different regulations, not only FDA regulations, new MDR regulations, also the world in general has a lot of different regulations focusing more and more on quality and safety of our products.
Right.
So we need to have that in mind, that the scrutiny is increasing. And I would say also looking at the next challenge when it comes to complex products.
Yes, I mean, we have to admit the fact that we are really lucky. It's a lucky generation that we have access to sophisticated and tailored products, not only for the patients, but also facilitating healthcare providers. But when we talk about complex, sophisticated, and tailored products, we are suddenly adding a lot into this equation. So, not having the possibility to maintain those products, how do you really compile DHFs for these complex products if we don't have those facilities or the platform to actually support that? It could actually pose a very big risk in terms of maintaining and managing that.
Right. What about change assessment?
Glad that you asked. That's my next challenge. We all know change is an integral part of the process. We cannot really run a product development or even an update on a product without having change in place. And the importance of change can not really be disregarded. When we talk about change, we really need to identify, are we able to have proper assessment of the change? Are we able to evaluate the change? And finally, how well we are able to roll the change.
And what about
Having
looking at
failing?
Sorry, so go ahead.
Yeah, having failing to do any of them would actually cost
Yeah.
on the product. It could affect timelines. It could affect the cost of the product and so on. So I really think that we need to identify how can this be effectively addressed in a solution.
Yeah, and I think also we need to have a better way to assess also the regulatory effects of a change.
Absolutely.
So you need to be able to see this small change that I'm doing, what kind of effect will it have on the products that we already have registered in different markets?
Absolutely, yes.
Next challenge that we have identified is related to inefficiencies working within siloed systems. Could you elaborate on that challenge, Smita?
Yeah, I mean, this challenge is not really very, very related to medical device industry. I think this challenge people can relate to any industry, even an IT organization. So we all know, and at certain point in time, we have even faced the brunt of having siloed systems. But I would like to support this with an example. Say, for example, we take documents at hand, which are across different distributed systems. Imagine the amount of effort one would need to identify the latest and greatest document from the systems. And to top it off, if we have approvers or reviewers who are either geographically located or are not accessing the same system,
you have to print out.
Exactly,
take
you
to
have
the next
to.
one.
Exactly. So, I mean, we already discussed, and we can see that this could pose a very big issue in the product development process, and this is something that should be dealt with. So to say, an easy challenge to fix in some sense, so that we can eliminate those disturbances.
And working with this challenge, inefficiencies associated with siloed, also traceability will of course be a challenge as a consequence of this.
Absolutely, and I think the next thing that we would like to talk about is also sometimes maintaining the traceability is a painful act, and also it has or imposes risk on audit. I mean, we are sometimes we are so driven in delivering because we always have to follow certain deadlines. There could be some compromises that we might have to make, and some of the compromises could be kind of keeping some aspects of design control compliance requirements on the side. And it is only when we have an audit situation, we gather a team, we start working on it, fixing things. And it's not just about gathering team and fixing things. It's about identifying what were the changes that has happened during this process. How do we have access to updated information, which version of the file was updated. So there are many things that needs to be taken care of. And the whole idea is that if we would have done this during the product development process, then maybe some part of this risk could actually be eliminated.
Let's see if we have some good tuning to this. But before we move on, these are some of the challenges that you and me have identified during our work here. But maybe we can turn to the audience now. And if possible, if you can add maybe in the chat, if you see that you have other challenges that you also see sort of fitting into this framework. Please feel free to add in the chat, and if you have any comments on these challenges.
Okay, I'll just quickly access my chat.
See if there are anyone who wants to participate in the challenges identification.
Yeah, so far not, but please feel free to use the chat as freely as possible and upload your questions, post your comments. We are always ready to respond to them.
So let's move over to design control and looking at the challenges within this area.
Yes, absolutely. I mean, we all understand and know that there are certain compliance requirements and standards that one has to follow in a regulated industry like medical device. So we know that we have CFR 820. We know that we have ISO 13485, both standards and regulations that one has to follow. And as part of this standard, I am completely convinced that most of the medical device companies have this process in place. And the process typically looks like, how do you define the user needs? So all the different user needs that comes either from customers through complaints or through other medium are captured somewhere in the system as part of the process. Preparation of the D&D plan. How do we really execute the product development or a product update? What is the team who will work on it? What will be the timeline? So everything is prepared as part of the D&D plan. Design inputs where we identify, okay, these are the requirements, translate them into specifications, prepare all the necessary material in order to drive the design inputs. Translation of these materials to actually now start to design the actual product, either using a CAD tool or some kind of 2D tools. So actually the design happens. Design review, I mean, it's not just a part of the flow, but this is something that happens
throughout the process,
exactly.
right?
So if there are any updates to the requirements, it has to reflect on the design, and the review has to make sure that this is signed off and agreed and so on. So design review is something that happens a couple of times in the process. if not less. Verification, we really need to understand if the product was designed as intended. Very important step. Validation, are we really catering to the identified user needs that we had in the initial stages? So is the product designed as per the user needs, working as per the user needs? Design transfer, it's an important phase. I believe it's quite an important phase because this is also a handover from R&D to operations. And this also starts the inception of how do you now start to compile the device master record.
Yes.
So it is quite an important step that cannot be kind of down prioritized. It's part of the process. And finally, design changes. And I think this is also something that is more like an umbrella activity, I would say, going throughout the process whenever there is a change, because every change that is done as part of the design and development of the product needs to be controlled, managed, and maintained. And design changes is where this is kind of tracked and kind of kept in order.
So what would be some challenges to this design control process?
Yes, so we know that this is something that's followed, but there are key challenges that one has to address. And then how can we actually mitigate some of these challenges? So the first point that I would like to bring it up here is how using this process or using the kind of platform one would typically foresee, how can you handle complex product designs as well as effective collaboration? I mean, when we talk about complex product designs, how is it actually linked to the DHF? Well, the whole idea with handling complex products is, say, for example, we have a product which has a hardware component, a software component, and maybe a chemical component where the medicine has to be inserted or something. So there are different identified teams. Of course, they collaborate, but they are still have responsibility for certain areas of the product that needs to be designed and developed. And therefore, as suddenly we see the DHF of the product actually taking shape at different parts of the R&D department. So we need a better tool to really identify how can we independently, so to say, to an extent, drive DHFs for different components of the product. But on the other hand, how can we actually compile it together? So ultimately, it's the product at hand that should have the whole DHF, even though it's done at kind of discrete, smaller projects.
And let me guess, it's going to be digital.
Yes, absolutely. And to kind of support what I've said now, I would like to show you a small video. The video is from 3D Experience platform, and it highlights the importance of using the concept of projects to actually manage product designs and ultimately deliver on establishing the DHF for the product. So let's have a look at the video. I hope all of you can see it well.
So what is it that we're seeing here?
So here we can actually see a Gantt chart view of a design control project that is a project that would ultimately deliver on the DHF. There are different activities and tasks assigned, and you can assign it to different people because compiling a DHF is not a one-man job. It's a teamwork, and this is precisely what the solution captures. Allow the team to participate in the process. You can decide on the timeline, how long a different task could potentially take. So pretty much you can plan how your project documentation for that particular DHF would look like. And therefore, when people are assigned, they get tasks, they work towards the tasks, and they have to deliver on the task. So if the task is compile the requirement specification, they deliver on the requirement specification, and the system kind of smartly compiles them together.
Sounds like a digital D&D plan to me.
Exactly, you're right. So the system is kind of smartly taking care of how to organize the information. Of course, we use the concept of templates and other things to support that. And then the assignee's task is pretty much over by delivering on the deliverables. I would also like to show you one other video, which I think is quite interesting from different perspectives. when we talk about compiling the DHF for the product,
Mhm.
we need to also consume the health of that, like how well that is going. Are we facing any bottlenecks? Is there delay in design verification? And at that point in time, we need some way to consume that information. And what best than having some way of consuming it graphically?
Yeah.
So we have the possibility in the platform to actually consume this information. You can have different types of configurable charts that one can use. For example, here I have some pie charts, line charts, and graphs, bar charts. And in this way, you can actually identify from a management perspective, it could be very, very helpful that I see how things are progressing and where I need to intervene in order to
To
speed up the
or
process.
find where
Or
bottleneck
if it's a
is.
very, very important and critical product, then it definitely needs the highest attention. So, yes, having said that, I would like to move to the next important challenge. And I cannot emphasize on this more and more. I mean, we all know the importance of change management, but how efficient is that process? When we talk about change management, there are a couple of things that are very important. One is during the product development or update process, are we able to identify all the different changes that has happened during that period? Because there are so many documents as part of DHF, risk assessments, you name it. There are lots of different
Could be
documents.
parallel projects running at the same time in
Exactly.
manufacturing
And
stuff.
then we really need to understand, okay, what are the active design changes that has happened? Do we need to take action on them? What are the contents of that change? So that's a very important aspect of change management. The other important aspect of change management is how do we assess the change? When we are talking about change, and specifically in case of updates to an existing product, that change could have many impacts. And this impact cannot just be identified by one person. There needs to be different stakeholders, for example, from regulatory affairs to identify, will this change affect resubmitted product?
Usually from a regulatory affairs, you probably get the information quite late.
Yeah, exactly. And the whole idea with change management is let the people get involved earlier in the process so that we don't impact the decisions, or decisions do not go ahead later in the process. So I would like to show you two videos here, actually. One video is, as I said, how do we really get a compiled information around what are the active and implemented changes that has happened while we were in the product development or product update process. So here you see in the design control project, which actually helps us in compiling the DHF, we also have access to design changes where you see all the different change orders that has been.
Is this related to the product?
It could be related to the product, it could be related to the documents, it could be related to the requirements linked to the product. So any change that has been driven on that particular product from different angles will be registered here. And here you see all the change orders, the governance that's responsible for driving the change, all the change actions. And we can also see a very important information here, the status of the change.
Yes.
What are active changes? What have been implemented? And you click on the changes and you have access to all the affected items that are planned to be updated in case of active changes, and affected items that were affected in case of implemented changes.
This looks like something that would make my life, if I work as a change coordinator, for example, would make my life much easier to have this overview.
Absolutely. And this is access to everyone. So people can actually look into different changes and make appropriate
See what's
decisions.
going on.
Yeah, absolutely. And the other thing that I wanted to show here is stressing on the fact that the importance of assessment, why it is so important. And in 3DX, we have a very good interface of handling changes as well as assessment. Changes are always driven through this concept of process steps that you see here. So you always have this workflow in front of you. And just simply by following the workflow, you actually end up ultimately implementing the change. Of course, there are decisions that you will have to make, but this workflow makes life way easier because you just have to follow the chain. The system will tell you when to do what is needed, what is optional kind of an activity. So here, for example, you need to identify what's the description of the change, because that's the information by which people will actually access that change or even search for a change. How critical is the change? You can decide on the criticality of the change. But what is most important here is the change questionnaire. And this is the place where you involve people from within the organization. It could be operations, regulatory affairs, etc., to tell what would this change mean if we are to roll out this change from their perspective, from the documents that are being updated.
And can I then go back to these questionnaires to, I mean, later on find out what was the decision? Why did we go ahead with
yes. So you can see this even as a decision tree, actually, because here you have all the decisions that was made. People have kind of, usually it is primarily a form or something that people might fill in, but here everything is digitally managed. And also you have the possibility to drive like, a nested question. So if this is needed, okay, what could be the next thing that I have to do? So it's a very, very easy way for driving the assessment and identifying the impact, what could be the impact of the change. Of course, there are other features that I would love to share, but maybe some other time. But this
next talk show.
Yes, these were the key things that I wanted to highlight when it comes to change assessment. Okay. The next thing that I wanted to also talk about was traceability. This has been an issue. I mean, most of the time, traceability matrix, that's quite an important document, is an Excel
sheet.
Yes.
And it works fine. You have the Excel sheet, you have lots of cells you need to fill in and update, so you can have your traceability in the Excel sheet.
Yes, but imagine if you are to update this when concurrent changes are happening. I mean, that could be a big pain to keep this updated, and it's totally manual. Make sure that it points to the right information, because people are accessing that as a source of truth. So this has to be like spot on. And of course, this is still possible. You can still maintain it in Excel, but the important thing is how accurate it will be and how much of effort you are putting in. And I'm glad to share also another video here. I really like to show things rather than just tell about it. So here we have the traceability matrix. This is encompassed with the DHF. So while you are in the DHF compilation for a specific product within a project, you actually even establish the traceability. So these type of activities could potentially start from the day you have started to work with design inputs and outputs. So you don't have to wait.
How it sort of
You see the evolution. Exactly. You see the evolution of traceability. This can be done quite at an early stage. And then if there are subsequent versions of information that needs to be updated, this is the place where you just go and change. So here you see all the different design inputs. Adjacent to that, you see the design outputs, and you also see the link that has been maintained. The pink indicators are to actually tell you that,
something's missing.
you have not actually established the link yet to that specific requirement, what was done. So a very good way of consuming that information. And the same goes for, so here is the view where you can actually see how the traceability is established. And the same goes for verification. Once I establish the connection between my input and output, how do I verify that this is actually working as it should? So you have the possibility to even tie verifications. Another cool thing that's an add-on to it is hazards. You can look into all the hazards, identify the hazards during the product development process, and tie it in this view. Also, you have access to the hazards and
you can connect it to your risk management.
Risks, exactly. So we'll look into that in a while. So this was how the traceability can actually be very, very conveniently established. And yes, it's digitalized. So it's a very easy way for anyone within the organization to access this. Yeah, design transfer.
Smoother design transfer.
Yes.
What do you mean by smoother?
I mean, the process of design transfer is there in place. And sometimes it's also important to identify this was the DHF for the product. How is it some way linked to the DMR for the device master record for the product? And in the system, there is actually a possibility to directly navigate users to the DMR directly from the traceability matrix. And I would like to show that as well. So this traceability matrix view, I cannot stress on the fact that this is such a powerful view. It has so much of information. One glance and you see the changes, you see the risks, you see the traceable information, and you also see the uh, parts that are linked to it. So when the design is done, this is the output, pretty much, the part. And when you access the part, you actually get access to look into the DMR, the device master record for that particular part. From there, you can complement it with more documents, shape it up, and set it for review and approval for that for the DMR.
Because it looks like you can click on a lot of these different objects to get to the information. So it's like it's object driven.
Absolutely, and you can navigate. You have this, I would say, windows connecting from one point to the other. So it's a very easy way of seeing the flow of information from one point to the other. So it really focuses a lot and emphasizes a lot on the importance of digital continuity of information. And finally, this has become like pretty much my favorite topic, I think. I talk about audit readiness all the time. So, yeah, the whole purpose of having anything audit ready is do things right from the beginning, and then you don't have to kind of redo or spend extra hours to fix it. Of course, there might be necessary steps to fine tune things towards the end or before an audit, because I don't think auditors are still digital in that sense that you can just throw them into the system. So, of course, there will be some activities, but the whole idea with audit readiness is we prepare all the things while we are in the product development process.
So that you're sort of
while we
audit
go,
ready
exactly,
as you go.
exactly. So while we go, we actually fix things, and then we are in a pretty good shape towards the end because we have done what was necessary to be done during that time. So here I would like to show you one view. This is more or less the result of the activities that you would typically do in the design development process, or even in an update process. So this view that I'm going to show you right now is a compiled, condensed version of what have you done during the process. So here I am in the navigation of a product. So this is the product at hand that I intend to launch in some time. And now I have access to the DHF. So all the hard work that I have done during the compilation of the DHF, the system compiles everything and presents it to me on the level of the product. And as I said, in case of complex products, sometimes even the DHF gets compiled like from different departments. So here in detailed view, you actually have access to identify which part of the DHF came from which project.
Yeah, okay.
But when you see the overall summary view,
delta DHF
exactly. So you see everything. Here is risks that I was talking about, I wanted to show. So here you have the possibility to actually look into the hazards, identify the RPN of the risks, and see it in the risk matrix. So once they are identified, you can chalk out the reduction options and finally figure out how can this be minimized or mitigated. So it's also very, very kind of compiled for the product. And finally, the traceability matrix. This view is very similar to what you in the previous videos, where we have seen that the traceability matrix is on the design control project because it could still be like smaller packets of traceability that has been done. But on the product level now, you see the full-blown version of traceability matrix with pretty much the same kind of information, design changes, hazards linked to the product part where you can access the DHF. And finally, we have design changes. So here again, it lists
Mm.
all the design changes that has been made over a period of time during the product development, both active, ongoing, and implemented.
Sounds like I have a pretty good baseline to prepare for my audit
Yes,
with everything accessible in this way.
that's the
Yes,
ambition.
yeah.
Yeah. So I could go on and on, but we have to bear time in mind.
Yes.
And therefore, I'm really, really interested to understand from you, Sandra, what is the circle of life and
Circle of
how
life.
do we fix it?
Yes. So circle of life in a regulatory perspective, maybe it's not the circle of life per se, but since I'm a regulatory affairs nerd, I like to see this as my circle of life, you could say. So to show you what I mean, when we work with submissions, and when we work against different authorities and we need to complete this to get the market authorization, I would say that we pretty much run it like a project.
Right.
So it usually starts with you have a new product or you have products that you want to introduce to new markets.
Yeah.
You will have changes that you need to notify, and you have also renewals that needs to be managed.
Right.
So you need to have some sort of a plan, what you want to do. When should you do it? How should you do it? What are the different stakeholders that needs the information? You typically need to have deliverables. So someone needs to provide something for you before you send it off to the authority.
Yep.
Different documents, data needs to be collected so that you have everything ready at hand. You manage your technical file, and really managing is because not one size fits all, right?
Yes.
So an FDA 510K application has a certain format. Applications to notified bodies in EU has different ways of looking at it, China, etc. They all have different ways of how you should submit your folders and your submissions. Once you submit your dossier, that can also be managed in different ways. It could, some point, it can be e-copy version, so electronical submission, but it has to be also managed sometimes in a paper format.
Right.
I've been part of a registration to, I think it was to Russia, where actually the pile of document that we were supposed to deliver, handed over a counter, was almost up to your shoulders, Mira.
Wow.
That's the amount of
That's
documents.
not even environment friendly.
It's not very environmentally friendly. So depending on, of course, of the classification of your product, you have different review questions, and you need to manage these as well. And hopefully you will receive, most likely you will receive your market authorization, but that of course is a license perhaps that needs to be maintained and managed.
Right.
And the challenges that we have is if we don't have it's sort of the same challenges you described for design control. If you work in silos, where are these different deliverables and documents?
Right.
How do you manage timings and everything that needs to be completed? So what I would like to do is to show you just some parts of this and how you could overcome these challenges by using a PLM platform.
Yeah.
So if we look at, for example, the planning of your submission project. So a little bit like you described before as well, if you see submissions as different projects, you can also use these kind of charts to maintain, for example, KPIs that you need to report to management.
Yeah.
It can also give you information that you can provide to the sales organization, to the market, so they know where are we. And you can maintain your submission projects within your RA organization as well in a good way. So it really gives you a clear visibility of all the submission projects you are currently running. And having a project approach to this also gives you a good way of managing your timelines. So that, for example, what we're going to see here now is a Gantt chart. This is related to a submission for FDA, a 510K application, where you then have maybe the first phase is dossier assembly. You have different tasks that needs to be carried out at a certain time. So you can easily view where are you now with these different tasks. So you have a good overview of where you are with your submission.
Right. And I can also see here and draw some parallels. I mean, the whole idea of submission and maintaining design control towards DHF, they are kind of based on the same principles that we have a project-centric way of working, right?
Absolutely.
So,
And not only that, let me show you here. If we start now a submission project, so here is me starting now a submission project towards FDA. I can have access to a specific template giving me exactly what I need to perform this kind of submission. So I will start it. And the first thing I will do when I start my submission project is really to establish these different links in the systems. So let's see if we can get it started here. So what you do first is that I establish the link to my product. So here is the connection I'm making now to the different products that we have and that are within the same platform. So I'll put that into my submission project and make sure I am working against the correct sort of the scene. I'm setting the scene. Where am I working? I'm working towards US against FDA.
right.
And maybe I also want to tell them this is going to be an e-copy. So I want to use the system also to put together a good submission format here as well. And as it is a project, of course, I have a schedule and I have different deliverables and I have different project members that I want to maintain. So if we look here again at the, let me see where we are. So I have these different tasks and these different deliverables. They have all been assigned to different people that I'm going to be working with. So I've put up my team here, and these are the different deliverables that I want them to complete. So perhaps your deliverable here, Smita, if you were a project member, was some certification or a cover letter maybe for the 510K. I can use the task approach to see, are you done with your task? Does it need to be approved? So I can have some review and approval of the task that you have performed and really manage, depending, of course, of your internal standard operation procedures. What do you need to do in your organization? So here I can really capture all of these different tasks and the deliverables and have them accessible at all times. And not only do I need document and data from a regulatory perspective in terms of putting the files together, I of course also need the product documentation. And remember in the beginning I connected the product. So this is where it will be very visible how easy it is to also access the DHF. So looking at this, I'm now going to manage the submission folder. And let's see if it has started the video. So first of all, what I would like to point out here is the process. You can see the same way you had for the DHF project, you also have the process of how you will execute your submission. This is typically mimicking your own SOPs that you have for how you perform submissions. So it's all about now we are in the dossier assembly phase, let's say, and we're going to manage now the dossier folders, and we're going to gather the documents and the deliverables that we need. So let's open up the folder structure that could come from a template so that I don't have to sort of harmonize throughout the organization and I don't have to redo it every time I do a new 510K application. I can use these submission templates to also have these folders. And here you can see some of the documents that were perhaps coming from the regulatory affairs specialist, for example, and the deliverables that they have delivered into my submission project. So there's the cover letter that you did for me. And here is where the product DHF comes into play. Because now I can also access all of the documents that are in the DHF. So that I can, first of all, I can see the different documents. I can see the changes connected to them. I can see if they are approved, what's the latest and greatest revision of that document. And then I can easily drag and drop it over to my submission folder as well.
And I think this also highlights the importance of kind of considering single source of truth, because we don't want, at the end of the day, redundant information. So you are kind of referencing to what is already available.
I don't
and
want to have to
accessing that.
create a new product specification or
Exactly.
a risk management report. I want to use what you developed during the product
Exactly.
design control.
Yeah.
So I will then go about my business, managing my submission folders.
Mhm.
I will submit it to the authority.
Yeah.
And let's say this is a heavily regulated area and it's a high class product. You will have a lot of questions from the authority.
Right.
And this could take, I mean, for the FDA part, that could be managed with a strict timeline that they need to answer. Some authorities don't have any calendars specifically, so that could take anywhere from a couple of weeks to maybe a year. Questions going back and forth, demanding of new specifications, clarification on things. So you need to have some way of maintaining that, right?
Right.
Because whatever comes out in these interactive reviews will be part of your submission dossier.
True.
And it needs to be there for the rest of the life cycle of the
Yeah, and
product.
it is also important from so many perspectives. I mean, most of the time it's in someone's email,
Yes.
and then it's kind of difficult to understand what was sent, what was the kind of communication. Here it is more or less everyone can see the different communications, and it's also to kind of archive that information for future references.
Absolutely, especially if it takes some time. A lot of things can happen. You can have different regulatory affairs specialists working with the same project. So you need to have access to what the first one discussed with the authority when you are taking over the assignment, for example. So looking again in my submission project, I can also add maybe a phase for the interactive reviews, where I can then capture the questions and the answers.
Right.
So that I can have full traceability of the questions. I can use these different tasks in the same manner, since we are running this as a project, and maybe assign a specific question to a certain person. So here it's Helen who has received something. She has completed her task, so I can also have visibility of who's doing what. So here, for example, we see assignee of this task is Helen, and she's going to deliver something. So she has delivered here an answer to FDA for the questions. I can add approvals, review and approvals as well, depending on the needs of your processes.
And I think one good thing that I would also like to highlight here is, I mean, the way assignees typically would work in a system, it's so unified because they have to deal with their tasks, their deliverables, and pretty much their part of the activity is done.
Yes.
So it's a same concept of working with tasks for all different modules within 3D experience.
Absolutely.
Like today we have seen both
Yes.
registration as well as DHF.
Yeah.
So I think it gives a single or a unified,
You recognize yourself.
unified way of
Yes.
working for the employees. Of course.
So it definitely helps the collaboration because we all work within the same platform. So we work with the same kind of approach to different things.
Exactly. Yeah.
And here you can see I can also manage in my submission project the timings of the review questions, so that I can say that we have a delay here. We still are in discussion with the authority, so it will take some more time.
You know who is the bottleneck.
I know who's the bottleneck, and I know who usually gets blamed for it as well. But here is a good way to visualize this, so it makes easy for everyone to understand what's going on.
True.
So let's say we pass the interactive review and we have received our market authorization. Now we have it here. It's ready. Typically, you would get the license in a local country where it's been approved, and then it's sent to the global RA, for example, in an email.
Right.
So where is the license? When does it expire, et cetera, et cetera? You need to know all of these things. So using 3DX platform, now I'm within my submission project here, and you can see we have come to the process step of market authorization. It has been completed. I have a released product. I have the information ready at hand, the authorization number, the expiry date. I can see a lot of different details connected to this market authorization. And again, coming back to the link to the product, also from a product perspective, I can also see what is the regulatory status of this product in different markets.
This could be such a powerful view for the sales team to identify, okay, where am I actually allowed to plan marketing for this product and eventually launch it? Because as I understand, I mean, isn't it important to have the right regulatory approval in order to even sell this
Yes.
product, right?
You
So
can
it's-
promise a lot to the market, but if you don't have this in place, you
Yeah.
can't deliver it.
Yeah. So
And
that's
I
really
would
good.
say not only to the sales, also from an R&D perspective, this could be valuable information. If you have changes ongoing and you see that there's an ongoing registration to Canada, maybe it's
Maybe
a good point in time to talk to your RA colleagues.
Yeah.
What are you doing right now? How far have you come in the process? Because we have a change going on right now. So looking at these market authorizations, and again, they're object driven. So on that object, I can have my information, like I said, with the dates when it expires. I can connect, for example, if you look here at the, where is it, reference documents, I can connect my product license. So that instead of finding it in someone else's email, I can upload it and have it in my platform connected to the submission project and also perhaps connected to the product so that I can see easily when is the how does the product license look? I can print it out and have it accessible for me to use. Not only that, if you see here also at the bottom here is something called submission master record. And this is so crucial. This is what I would love to have had when I was doing my change notification in my early ages, in my early time, because this is where I will find all of those documents that I would have needed for that change notification and to be able to argue really with the authority in a good way. So if you look at this submission master record, I can really find here everything that I've been doing with this product for a certain market. So here, for example, is just a dummy product, MDP, medical device product 1207. But I can see I did an initial submission. At some point, I did a variation. Some changes was going on, perhaps. And currently, I'm working on a renewal, ready to be start to be processed. And during my renewal process, I would like to, of course, see what was the document that I used in my initial submission. So I have a good base. So I can follow the structure of the initial submission and see all of the documents that I used in my submission. Also have access to the product license, of course, so that I have a sort of a good base when I do my renewal.
And looking at this, I also want to reflect on one thing. I mean, this is not just a SharePoint view where we kind of dump the information, okay, in different folders. It's much more than that because you have an established process by which you are actually getting the regulatory approval. You are tracking a lot of different information and, of course, maintaining the dossier that was sent over time to authority. So really cool.
Yeah, in my opinion, this is a really good way of capturing the circle of life of the regulatory affairs because you have everything in there. And what can I say? That's just why I love PLM so much, also from a submission perspective, that you can use the tool to do this.
Thank you for this insightful journey around this regulatory circle of life. I'm sure my audience would also agree on this.
I really get excited talking about this. So
yes.
We have 2 comments.
So we actually have a quick slot for questions.
Yes.
So maybe we can quickly conclude.
Yes.
I'm quite certain that I and Sandra can spend another half day on this topic and really talk around this, but we have to bear in mind the time.
So let's just summarize this a little bit before we turn to the questions and Q&A session.
So the biggest takeaway that we think one should think of around this is collaboration. We cannot really disregard the importance of collaboration, not only while establishing the DHF as part of design control, but also how can we efficiently manage registration, collaborate with different teams. Change was a very big example. And therefore, this has become a favorite word of mine, I think, audit readiness.
Who doesn't want to be audit ready?
So I think this is one of our takeaways, that we really feel the importance of being audit ready right from the initial stages rather than doing it towards the end.
Third, I would say change assessment, Smita.
Yes, I mean, importance of change assessment, we cannot disregard it. And we really see that if you have a platform or a solution that can support you with assessment of change, support you with identifying the change and rolling out the change in an efficient manner, I think then you are in good hands. And finally, one source of truth. I think this is something that we have also seen it in the sessions, just like other takeaways. We really believe that we don't need redundant information to be stored in different places. Have one system which can store everything and have access to that.
Yeah. So having this in place, I would say keep calm and stay compliant. So with that, we leave open for questions. So I see in the chat here that we actually have, now I don't have my glasses on, so you have
Yes,
to read, Smita.
I can read the questions. So we have received one of the questions from our audience, and I think I will be able to answer that. So I'll read the question. When you showed design control, it looked like you were driving the change investigation directly from the CO. Is the CR not used anywhere? Very good question. CR is definitely very much part of the process.
And what is a change CR?
So CR is the change request where the whole evaluation takes place.
Okay.
So one of the example that I used in our presentation was on the CO, but definitely the assessment or the investigatory activity of the change can very well be driven on the CR as well. So you can do it at different levels, but that's totally available in the system. And as I understand, I mean, in a regulated industry, the importance of the decisions that were made around the change and capturing the decision is very critical. And therefore, there are also different reports that you can generate from the system to identify what was the change, what was the decisions made, and how did the change roll out. So it's definitely there, and I would love to show you sometime even in the system. So
let's
I
turn
hope
to
the answer was okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, great.
We got a thumbs up there. Good.
Then
I think
we
further
have
down we had one there. Traceability matrix functionality.
yes, and it's also from one of our audience around traceability matrix. And yes, I like the traceability matrix functionality. Thank you very much. Are there any similar functionalities available to support the design transfer when transferring the design output into manufacturing specifications? Well, right now in the current version, the functionality we have is a direct link from the design, from the DHF, from the traceability matrix directly to the DMR. But we are also in the phase where some of the parts of the solutions are actually upgraded for better user experience and for better functionality. So this is definitely something that I am very certain DS is looking into, and I'm really hopeful that we will see more enhancements to such solutions in the coming next releases. So stay tuned, and I am definitely sure we will be able to help out in such functionalities as well.
And sorry now, Smita, but time is running out. So I think that we will have to save any further questions. Please use the chat. We will monitor it throughout the day as well.
Yes.
So rest assured you will get your answers, but we have to come to the final page here.
Yes.
And I think, Smita, what would you say the time for action is now?
Yes. So the time for action is now, and it's never too late to do something. So we really look forward to hearing from you on how we can together help you out on establishing your compliant design control and facilitate a smoother product registration. Till then.
Yes, thank you. Enjoy the rest of the sessions in this PLM forum. There will be a break right now, so you can utilize this time to go to the Knowledge Hub and browse around and have a look at that.
Yes.
And you have our email addresses here as well if you want to reach us after the day today. So thank you all for your time, and
thank you very much, and have a nice rest of the day.
Yes, thank you.
Bye from us.
Bye from us. Bye.